Hello and welcome back to our section dedicated to stories and news around the world from the week with me and Melissa Noormilad.
Good morning, Miriam. And I know today you've got some great news for the ones who strive to stay young forever. I mean, scientists have succeeded in rejuvenating mice by manipulating their epigenetics.
This is great news, as you said, for people who want to become younger, especially women and some people who want to stay younger forever. This is great news for them. Scientists have succeeded in rejuvenating mice by manipulating their epigenetics, like you have just mentioned. In Boston labs, old blind mice have regained their eyesight. They have also developed smarter, younger brains, and they've built healthier muscles and kidney tissues. So this is a very big development in the field of medicine. And there was a second group of mice that have prematured very quickly with devastating results to nearly every tissue in their bodies. So by making DNA repairs on these mice, the scientists were actually able to drive age forward and backward, thus manipulating their aging process. So the epigenetic study was 13 years in the making. 13 years they were making research and demonstrated that the reorganization of genetic structures or structure can either accelerate or reverse aging effects.
The researchers, Miriam, have acknowledged that this process and these results should be or must be tested on larger mammals and even humans.
Exactly. They need to test this theory, this new study that they have discovered on more people, on more mammals, to have more accurate results and to reach the thing that they want to reach, to rejuvenate people. So basically, environmental and lifestyle factors are also matter in the in altering epigenetic expression over the course of our life. So it is important to sleep well. It's important to eat well, and it's important to exercise.
And that's how we can stay in shape and live a happy life, especially in the rough and rapid life rhythms that we're witnessing. In the same context, when a result or a research has showed that regular trips to the park could reduce people's reliance on antidepressants. Could you tell us more about this study?
Exactly. This is also a very beautiful discovery. We actually know that going to parks makes us feel less stressed, but there was now a study to prove that. So the research has found that visiting parks or green spaces can dramatically lower mental health drug use. Dropping into a park, community garden, or other urban green spaces or areas between 3 and 4 times a week can lower or cut people's chances of taking medication for anxiety or depression by a third. So the positive impact of are also extended to physical health, and that was documented by a university or by a researcher at the Finnish Institute for Health and Welfare.
It is to be noted also, Miriam, that the green spaces are not only good for our health, it is great for the planet, of course, and it helps cities adapt to rising temperatures.
It's great for your health, it's great for your physique, and it's also great for the environment.
From scientific research, Miriam, we go to an economic file that has marked the week. Global elites all converged on the small alpine town in Davos for the annual meeting of the World Economic Forum. This forum exactly aims at solving the most pressing political and economic issues and comes amidst, let's say, difficult times this year. Let us watch this report.
The annual World Economic Forum has made a comeback after a 2-year absence due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The yearly event, attended by global political and business leaders as well as prominent social activists and hosted in the Swiss Alpine Resort, comes in difficult times with geopolitical fractures and fears of deglobalization. The 53rd edition of the Davos meeting takes place amid one of the steepest economic slowdowns of the century, with the IMF warning that a third of the global economy could be hit by a recession this year. A WEF survey warns that energy and food supply crunches are likely to persist for the next 2 years. The forum is to promote solutions to address the most pressing challenges such as the cost of living crisis, the conflict in Ukraine, the energy crisis, the climate crisis and rising inequalities.
Our generation has reached a turning point, confronted by truly existential problems. Climate change, exploitation of nature, nuclear possible incidents, or even wars, extreme poverty and viruses.
More than 820 million people are going hungry, while the richest 1% of the population has generated nearly twice as much new money as the rest of the world over the last 2 years. Thus, a tax of up to 5% on the world's richest would help lift 2 billion people out of poverty.
The tax mix over the last 40 years have moved from those who have more to the average person, the worker, and mostly VAT. So we need to rebalance that because we have all this accumulation. So with up to 5% net wealth tax of multimillionaires and billionaires, we could raise 1.7 billion globally, trillion, sorry. And with that, we can eliminate poverty and even have a 10-year plan to eliminate hunger.
Technology and innovation are also high on the agenda this year, with what many are calling a fourth industrial revolution. However, the meeting is highly criticized by environmental activists who protest against the elite traveling to the Swiss resort in private jets amid an escalating climate crisis. The forum under the theme Cooperation in a Fragmented World will continue until January the 20th.
As we have seen in this report, the forum started 4 days ago and will end today, the 20th of January. But one thing that we should retain from this forum is that more than 820 million people are going hungry, while the richest 1% are only getting richer. So this, in numbers, that would be $42 trillion. Almost 2/3 of all new wealth is taken by the 1% minority. And in the meantime, entire countries are facing bankruptcy. Entire countries are planning austerity. And according to the World Bank, we could witness the biggest increase in global inequality and poverty since World War II. So a tax of up to 5% would be a solution. A tax for the richest or on the world's richest people would help lift 2 billion people out of poverty. And it's one of the best solutions to end poverty around the world.
Indeed, Miriam, Oxfam called for a systemic and wide-ranging, let's say, increase in taxation of the super-rich to claw back crisis gains driven by public money and profiteering. According to this organization, Oxfam's report, rich people's income is mostly unearned. It is derived from returns on their assets, yet it is taxed on an average of, let's say, 18%, just over half as much as the average top tax rate on wages and salaries.
Yes, and also over 200 millionaires are urging the elite in Davos to tackle this extreme wealth and tax the ultra-rich to help relieve the cost of living worldwide.
Another news has marked the week, Miriam. We're talking about the senior United Nations delegation that held talks with the Taliban-led administration to discuss, women's rights to or women's education and work in Kabul. This comes weeks after Taliban banned most women from working in NGOs and female students from attending universities.
Yeah, very sad news still in Afghanistan. So Taliban are always restricting women's freedom and women's life. The UN delegation included the Deputy Secretary General Amina Mohammed and Sima Buhous, Executive Secretary of UN Women, to speak to senior Taliban leaders about the reversing restrictions, including a new ban on female aid worker.
And this visit, Miriam, comes amid or after or as Taliban faced a lot of let's say, criticism and increasing criticism for the restrictions that they imposed on women's freedoms.
Freedom. Yeah, exactly. Throughout the year 2022, Melissa, Afghan women or the ruling Taliban, they enforced the worst gender-based discriminatory policies seen anywhere in the world on women. And the Taliban announced an indefinite ban on secondary schools for girls. They deprived almost 3.5 million teenagers from attending schools. They also banned females from going to universities. They closed universities in the faces of females, and they also fired female government employees from their work. They also issued a ban on women entry to parks as well. So it's a whole movement, say, of restricting women's lives and freedom. So for Afghan women, this is really tragic, but we hope things will get better in the next months.
I mean, we've noticed that the situation is going from worse to worse, and the least we could do is hope for a better situation for the Afghan women. We end our English segment of the show, Miriam, with China's population that is declining, and India on the other side, India's population overtaking China to become the world's biggest population in the world.
In the world, exactly. Now, Chinese population shrank for the first time since the 1960s. Let's take a look at the statistics. In 2022, population fell to 1.4 billion, down some 850,000 people from the previous year, as the numbers are showing right here. So the last time the country's population decreased was during the famine in 1961, and it killed tens of millions of people, Melissa. It was the last time.
Miriam, what drove this decrease? I mean, what are the causes?
Well, basically, China's one-child policy that has been on for 35 years is actually a factor that drove this decrease in population and the reduction. And additionally, the COVID pandemic also affected China's reproductive rate this year, let's say, or during the past year.
And this decrease, I think it means that the workforce is shrinking, and the world economy, is going to be in trouble very soon.
Exactly. Since China's population is decreasing, the Chinese economy will be in trouble, thus the world economy, since it's a major economy in the world. And since China's population decreased, another country should take the title of the most populous country. And it is expected that India will overtake, or is actually already overtaken, the title of the most populous country in the world.
And it is worth mentioning that all over the world we have reached 8 billion people in the whole planet.
Such a huge number for our planet.
Such a huge number, such a huge responsibility for all the humans. Thank you, Miriam, for all this information.
Thank
we
you,
will
Melissa.
see you next week.
For sure.
That's it, dear viewers, for today's English segment of the morning show. Our show is still on, so stay with us.